mark my words, far more dangerous than nukes.
Is going to kill more middle-class jobs than it creates for a basic reason.
It will destroy employment.
You had said around 2017 you thought in 10 to 15 years about 40 to 50% of all jobs would be replaced. Is that still an accurate timeline in your opinion? What the heck is everyone going to do when they don't have a job in 3 years, if so?
It's actually uncannily accurate. People have criticized me for being too aggressive in the 2017, 18, 19, and I think it's a very, very significant problem, and I think finally some governments are waking up and realize they have to do something about this.
There's something happening right now that every single American needs to know about. A silent revolution. One that isn't being talked about enough on the news. And it's not a theory, it's already underway. You may think you're safe, that your job, your income, your future are secure. But buried beneath all the headlines about inflation, debt, and the economy, there's one devastating force that's quietly ripping apart what's left of the American middle class. It's not a recession. It's not outsourcing. It's something far more dangerous and far more permanent. Stay with me, because in just a few moments, I'm going to show you a single economic trend that could wipe out tens of millions of jobs. And most people have no idea that it's coming. This might be the most important thing you'll hear this year. If your family is really struggling right now, you're far from alone. I've been writing the Economic Collapse blog for over 8 years, and in that time, I've watched the American middle class shrink steadily. It's like a bizarre game of musical chairs. Every month a few more chairs disappear and fewer people are left standing. Oh yeah, some have gotten obscenely rich, mostly in places like New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., but for most of the country, things are getting worse. Detroit used to have the highest per capita income in America. Now it's a crumbling war zone. And it's not just Detroit. Dozens of once great manufacturing cities across the U.S. have been hollowed out. Since 1997, we've lost over 91,000 manufacturing plants and nearly 5 million jobs. Those were good-paying jobs, middle-class jobs, and they've been replaced by low-wage service work. And let's be honest, you can't build a middle-class life on just $14 an hour. But just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, something even more destructive arrived. I'm going to give you 15 signs that the middle class in the United States is being systematically destroyed. 1. AI is coming for middle-class jobs, and no one is stopping it. If you thought that outsourcing was bad, wait until you see what artificial intelligence is about to do to the American middle class. We're not talking about decades from now. This is happening right now. In 2025, Goldman Sachs estimates that AI could replace up to 300 million jobs worldwide, and a significant chunk of that will be middle-class jobs in the United States. And we're not just talking about factory workers or cashiers anymore. Now it's accountants, paralegals, copywriters, graphic designers, customer service reps, jobs that used to be considered safe, even prestigious. They're being replaced by lines of code and emotionless algorithms that never sleep, they never get sick, and never ask for a raise. Tech giants are already laying off tens of thousands under the pretense of AI integration. IBM froze hiring for 7,800 people back in 2023 because they believe AI can handle them instead. Goldman Sachs, in its March 2023 report, admitted AI could significantly disrupt labor markets, especially white-collar, middle-income roles. This isn't some far-off scenario. This is a corporate roadmap, and is being rolled out today. And unlike globalization, there's no offshore job left to send these people to. They're either being replaced at home, right here in the U.S., while the political class is either asleep at the wheel or worse, in bed with big tech. Ask yourself this: if AI replaces your job, who's gonna hire you next? Who is it? Another company that just installed a chatbot instead of a customer service department? A law firm that now uses GPT-5 to draft legal briefs in seconds? As AI gets smarter, faster, and cheaper, the value of human labor is collapsing, especially for those in the middle. And don't believe for a second that there's a new economy waiting to absorb all these displaced workers. That's the same lie they told factory workers in Michigan and Ohio 20 years ago. While artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming the job market, it's not the only force eroding the stability of America's middle class. Another relentless adversary has been chipping away at our livelihoods for decades. Number 2, the stagnant wages amid rising inflation. The middle class squeeze. Wages in America have been flat for decades. From 1979 to 2013, middle-income workers saw their hourly pay rise by just 6%. Meanwhile, the top earners raked in increases of over 40%. Now, in 2025, it's even worse. Wages are rising by about 3.5% a year, but inflation, especially after the latest tariffs, is climbing just as fast, if not faster. That means every dollar you earn buys less and less. Essentials like housing, groceries, and healthcare just eating away at paychecks. Families are stuck, working harder but getting nowhere. This isn't just financial stress, it's economic suffocation. And the American dream, it's being priced out of reach. As if AI and inflation weren't enough, now Washington has found a new way to bleed the middle class, one checkout at a time. Number 3, tariffs are draining the middle class, $3,800 at a time. New tariffs rolled out in 2025 are hitting where it hurts, your wallet. The average American family is now paying up to $3,800 more per year because of higher prices on everyday goods. We're talking about clothing, up 17%, fresh produce, up 4%, vehicles, up 8.4%. These aren't luxury items, they're basics. And once again, it's the middle class that's footing the bill, while the people who wrote these policies don't feel a thing. 4, crippling household debt, the silent strangler of the middle class. In 2025, American families are buried under a record-breaking $18 trillion in household debt. The average household owes over $105,000, and it's not because they're reckless spenders. It's because the cost of simply surviving keeps going up. Credit card debt alone has skyrocketed. The average unpaid balance is now $9,214, interest rates above 20%. That means families are going deeper into the hole just trying to buy groceries, gas, or just to pay a utility bill. This isn't financial mismanagement, it's survival. And while Wall Street is doing just fine, millions of middle-class Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, sinking further into debt with every passing month. 5, you can't afford to get sick anymore. Welcome to the healthcare trap. Let me ask you something. What happens if you wake up tomorrow with a chest pain, or your kid breaks a leg at school? If you're like most Americans, you'll hesitate, not because you're unsure if it's serious, but because you're terrified of the bill. In 2025, the average annual premium for employer-sponsored family health insurance is over $24,000. That's more than many families pay for rent. And that's before deductibles, before copays, and before out-of-network surprises. People aren't skipping care because they don't need it, they're skipping care because they can't afford it. And if you're middle class, you're likely earning too much to qualify for help, but not enough to survive the system. They call this coverage, but really, it's a trap. 6. Most Americans can't handle a $400 emergency. And guess what? You might be one of them. Let me ask you this. If your refrigerator broke down tomorrow, or your kid cracked a tooth, and you had to pay the dentist out of your own pocket, would you be able to cover it without going into debt? Because 37% of Americans still can't handle a $400 emergency without borrowing, selling something, or skipping bills. That's according to the Federal Reserve's latest report. 37%. And we're not talking about a major disaster here, just $400. And yet for millions of families, that's the difference between getting by and breaking down. This is what living on the edge looks like. One broken appliance, one flat tire, and the whole month unravels. That's not financial resilience, that's quiet desperation. 7. Young Americans are being locked out of the housing market. If you're under 40, there's a good chance you will never, ever own a home. Since 2020, rents have jumped 40%, while wages have not kept up. Home prices? Over $400,000 on average. Down payments out of reach. And the worst part? The longer you rent, the harder it gets to ever buy. This system wasn't built to include you. It was built to shut you out. 8. Most jobs in America don't pay a living wage. Let's get real here. Most jobs in this country don't pay enough to live. As of 2025, over 60% of all U.S. jobs pay less than $25 an hour. That's around $52,000 a year, and that is before taxes. Now ask yourself, can you raise a family on that? Can you afford rent, gas, groceries, insurance, and maybe save a little on just $52,000 a year before taxes? Probably not. We've replaced stable middle-class jobs with gig work, temporary contracts, and low-benefit service positions. And now, even full-time workers are living like they're broke. This is not what a functioning economy looks like. This is wage depression by design. 9. Student loans equals negative net worth. In 2025, student debt in the U.S. has hit $1.77 trillion. The average young borrower owes $39,000. That means millions start adult life already in the red. You're not building a future, you're trying to dig out of one. 10. 102 million working-age Americans are not working. Let that sink in. In 2025, over 102 million working-age Americans have no job and aren't even counted in unemployment statistics. The government calls it not in the labor force. I call it a national disaster, and you're supposed to believe this economy is strong? 11. Suburban poverty has exploded, and it's getting worse. Since 1990, poverty in the United States suburbs has jumped over 50%, faster than in cities or rural areas. The American dream has officially left the suburbs. Just look at Long Island. Poverty among seniors rose 78% in Nassau County alone. If the safe neighborhoods are collapsing, what does that say about the rest? 12. Living beyond means. The debt-fueled American nightmare. Americans are spending more than they make again. Total household debt just hit $18 trillion. And credit card debt over $1.5 trillion. People aren't splurging, they're surviving. This isn't prosperity, it's collapse masked by a credit limit. 13. The bottom 40%, struggling for crumbs. The bottom 40% of U.S. households bring home just 11.4% of all income. That's nearly half the country, trying to survive on barely 1/10 of the pie. Meanwhile, the top gets growing richer year after year. The middle is disappearing, and the bottom, they're just trying to stay afloat. 14. The Great Car Collapse. Middle-class Americans are stuck with aging vehicles. Americans are increasingly unable to afford new cars and are stuck making do with aging vehicles. The average age of a passenger vehicle in the U.S. has reached a record high of 13.6 years. The cost of repairs is skyrocketing. Today, a repair bill of $1,000 or more is considered a good deal. The middle class is being trapped with their deteriorating cars as the cost of living and maintenance continues to climb, while the possibility of buying new or even used cars becomes nearly impossible. And 15. The restaurant apocalypse. Eating out becomes a luxury. For many families, eating out is now a luxury they simply can't afford. A growing number of restaurants, including major chains like Red Lobster, Buca di Beppo, and Rubio's Coastal Grill, have filed for bankruptcy as consumer spending has sharply decreased. The middle class is increasingly priced out of dining out, and what used to be a regular social activity has become an unaffordable treat. While the wealthy continue to dine out, the rest of America is stuck trying to make ends meet at home. This is why restaurants are closing down, and retail spaces across the country are disappearing. The middle class no longer has the disposable income to support dining out or shopping the way they once did. But it's not just the restaurants. Entire industries are being wiped out. Families can no longer afford what used to be part of their everyday life. This has created a ripple effect across the economy, and for far too many, it's become the new norm. When I was growing up, shopping malls and restaurants were a staple of middle-class life, places where kids like me would hang out, where families would spend their weekends. Back then, the middle class wasn't so distant from the rich or the poor. We were all just trying to get by, and we did. But today, most families have little to no financial cushion. They're buried in debt, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere. Discretionary income is drying up, and we're on track for the worst year in store closings in American history. Meanwhile, the media keeps spinning the narrative that the economy is in good shape. That is nonsense. The numbers are clear. The U.S. economy will never be stable again until the middle class starts growing. Until we address these problems, the middle class will continue to disappear. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, and here's to the next time.